Nomad Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Nomad Podcast. And today I got the wonderful Gustavo joining me. And if you don't know Gustavo is the founder of Swapido. And what basically Swapido does, if I read my notes correctly here, they sell Bitcoin over the Lightning Network and instantly send pesos, the Mexican currency, to any bank account in Mexico, which you then can use that money that you send through Lightning to that bank account. You can then use that to buy groceries, to pay bills, and I don't want to spoil too much right now. So, shall we get into the episode? Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Nomad Podcast. And today I have Gustavo joining me. And Gustavo, how are you? I hope you're well.
I'm very good. Thank you for inviting me. How
So,
are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. So, thank you for asking. My first question for you is, how did you get into Bitcoin? And was it for you hard to understand once you got into Bitcoin?
Yeah, well, I got into Bitcoin when I was like 18 years old. I just wanted to make money online. I just wanted so I found this Bitcoin thing you could mine, you could buy. I also found some other altcoins. And I guess at first I didn't understand it. I didn't really want to understand it either. I just wanted to make money. But I got into all altcoins. I was the guy that would say tokenize everything. This was like a long time ago, but then I guess through trial and error, through making mistakes, you're forced into learning about Bitcoin. Through losing your money with altcoins, you're forced to learn why is Bitcoin different. So I got into that rabbit hole around 2018 of really understanding what Bitcoin was, and understanding the value of the decentralized peer-to-peer nodes, the network of decentralized peer-to-peer nodes, the mining, the proof of work, the everything else that makes Bitcoin, so valuable. So it was hard to understand, now. I mean, it's been years, so now I get it, but it was a bit of a turbulence, let's say, way into Bitcoin. It wasn't straight ahead. I had to make mistakes, but here we are. So it turned out well.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, you have done some amazing work with Swapido, and I wanted to ask you what Swapido is about, and how did you get the idea for Swapido? Was it from a personal problem that you had, or was it like, hey, I let's do it, let's give it a shot, let's create something that is completely new, especially for you and for your home country, since you're Mexican, right? That's correct.
I'm not Mexican actually, but I
You're
can
not
tell you the
Mexican though.
story. No, I'm not Mexican. So I look Mexican. I'm Peruvian. Okay, I was born in Peru.
Okay.
I moved to Canada when I was 8, and I grew up in Montreal, Canada, for like 20 years. So I'm Canadian too. And then I moved to Mexico during COVID,
Okay.
because I was tired of Canada, and like many others, you've heard. And yeah, and then okay, so here's the answer to your question. Was this a personal problem that I had? And yes, it was. So when I got to Canada, I was already like working in the Bitcoin industry, so I was already earning a wage in Bitcoin, but I didn't have an easy way to convert my Bitcoin to pesos to spend
Mhm.
Bitcoin in Mexico. So I created Swapido to make it very easy for me to spend my Bitcoin to pesos in Mexico. So with Swapido, you can, with a Lightning wallet, you can pay. You can create a Lightning invoice on Swapido, and you can pay it with your Lightning wallet, and immediately in seconds you'll get money in any bank account in Mexico. So you can pay your rent, you can send it directly to your landlord, to his bank account, whatever. You can pay at a restaurant, you can just send it to their bank account, or if you have a bank account, you send it to yours. So yeah, Swapio is a very easy way for me to spend Bitcoin in Mexico because I earn a wage in Bitcoin, and now it's useful for other people as well.
Okay. I hope I didn't racially abuse you there for calling you a Mexican, although
Of
you're
course
from
not.
Peru, man.
I understand that I can definitely look Mexican.
Okay. Okay,
Peruvians,
cool.
Mexicans, we look very alike, so it's all good. I'm not one to get offended like that.
Okay. Cool. Um. So Swapido basically, in a sense, is a exchanger slash Lightning wallet. Is that correct, or did I
uh,
get that wrong?
it's not like okay, so it's just an exchange. So you
Ah,
have to
okay.
pay from another. You have to pay from your other Lightning wallet. So let's say you have Phoenix, which is like one of the most popular Lightning wallets, and I recommend it too. So you have Bitcoin there. Then you open Swapido, which is a web application. You say I want 100 pesos or $5 or $10 or whatever in this bank account, and Swapido is going to say, okay, well, pay this Lightning invoice, and you're going to go on Phoenix, and you're going to pay the Lightning invoice from Phoenix. So Swapido is just an
Wow.
exchange, so far an off ramp only, but it's going to be more than that. And you need your own. It's non-custodial, so you have to pay from your own wallet.
Okay, cool. So basically, it's similar to Strike, although no, Strike is different actually. Strike is
It's
different.
similar, but it's different because Strike is also a wallet because it's
Yeah.
custodial. Strike has custody of your funds. In Swapido, we don't want to have custody of your funds because we want you to be in control of your funds. So that's why we make it a non-custodial experience, where as soon as you send us the Bitcoin, we send you the pesos. We don't keep the Bitcoin. We don't hold the Bitcoin for you.
Okay. So do you live off the fees then, basically,
Yeah,
or?
exactly. Like every
Okay,
exchange,
cool.
we live off the fees. We make like 1% out of every transaction.
Okay. Uh, but when did you get the idea? Actually, was it during the lockdowns, basically, or
Uh,
was it?
I actually started another exchange back in Canada. It was called Verify.
Mhm.
So I guess I got familiarized, with all this when I was living and working in Canada, and then with COVID, I moved to Mexico. So it's like, and then I saw Mexican market wasn't too good. There's like a lot of shitcoin casinos here, but there's not like very good Bitcoin solutions. So I thought this was gonna be a good add up to the Mexican market.
Okay. You just mentioned shitcoin casinos. I got remember Checo Perez, the Formula One driver for Red Bull. I think he's sponsored by one. I'm not sure which one again, but
Yeah, well, there's the big exchange Bitso. It's like the
yeah,
biggest
yeah.
exchange in Mexico. They've dominated the market for a long time. I mean, I'm not nothing against them. They're just a business. They do their things in their own way. I just think there's a market for people that just want Bitcoin,
Mm,
and that's what I'm trying to provide.
yeah. So fuck shitcoins.
Yeah,
So
in other words, exactly.
okay. So user wise, is it still? Are you still guys adapting? You know what? Are you still improving in a sense, or is it already? Or what? Let's say like that. What would you like to improve, especially that it gets more user friendly or easier to use, especially for people
Right,
my age? Because I'm 19, so I'm a young guy.
right. Well, that's awesome, and I'm happy for you that you have a podcast at 19. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Well, about that, I mean, so far we've had great feedback because the product is very user friendly. Okay, so we put a lot of effort into the user experience. However, the limitation we have is that you can only sell Bitcoin, and it's only Lightning. So, what's next? It's adding people can buy Bitcoin. That's like the most important next step. People can sell, use on chain, not just Lightning, but on chain transactions too. So yeah, those are like the next steps we want to go to, and also allow people to pay their services with Bitcoin. Like your gas bill or your phone bill, things like that.
Okay. Do you then? Do you guys then have a lot of customers currently, or is it still a small thing? And
It's a
it will.
very Yeah, we just started like 3 weeks ago. So when we commented on your post, we had just started. When we first started talking. So yeah, this is a very very new thing. We're doing this for Mexicans, but also for the expats in Mexico. There's a bunch
Mhm.
of expats from all of like Canada, U.S., Europe that live in Mexico. We want to provide this for them as well. So this is available for like even if you're a tourist and you come down here, you can use it on like a weekend or like a week. You can sign up with your European ID and you can start paying with Lightning anywhere in Mexico. So and I think that's pretty cool. So I guess and we don't have that many users. Like I said, we just launched 3 weeks ago, but I mean it's going quite well. I'm quite optimistic. I'm quite confident that it's working out well.
So adoption wise, you would say it's going on a path where it will grow by year, by
Yeah,
each
I
year.
mean,
So
yes, but also like we gotta understand that Mexico, like I said, was dominated by one company for like 10 years, and there was nothing else going on. So, and now things are starting to change. There's more Bitcoin meetups. You can find me at the Bitcoin
mm,
meetups in Mexico City. We have a Bitcoin space. Like you see behind me, there's like a lot of
yeah,
Bitcoin decoration. Well, I'm at this place called La Casa de Satoshi, Satoshi's house. It's like a co-working space my friends have built and I'm a part of as a member, where we, work on Bitcoin projects. So I'm just basically my point is that it's we come from very far because it was nothing Bitcoin only going on in Mexico like a year ago, and now things are starting to move quickly, and I think this is great for Bitcoin adoption in Mexico, and it's going to be great for Swapido too.
okay, cool. Um, but I have a thought now. Since it's an exchange, basically, do you guys need special licenses to run Swapido in Mexico, or is it much more? Because when I compare stuff like that to Europe, Europe is horrible. You need like I don't know how many licenses, how many. I mean, you have like I mean, Relay. I'm not sure if you have the Relay, the Swiss company, but
Yeah,
a Relay is like a basically what they are. They're like similar to you guys, Swapido, just that they're also a wallet which you can buy Bitcoin and
right.
it's actually similar to Strike. Sorry, similar to Strike, and
Yeah,
with them I heard that they had to go through a lot of, licenses, dealing out with the Swiss government because it's a Swiss company, and then also
right,
with
right,
the
right.
EU, and it's all this process. Are you guys much more, or is it much more simpler in Mexico and especially South America? Or
Right, right. Well, that's a very good question. So Europe is probably the hardest like region in the world. Okay, so that let's just make that point across. Mexico's not that easy either. I would tell you it's probably even harder than in the U.S. and Canada, because some people think, okay, like Latin America, it's like very free markets. You can just do whatever you want, but there's no law. But no, there is. There's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of laws by the powerful people because they want to have it only for some very capital is control, uh, in some sense. Wealth is concentrated more than in other countries, so there's a lot of red taping, there's a lot of laws, but it's still manageable. And one advantage we have is that we don't uh, connect directly to the banking rails. We do it through
Mhm.
like partners, and that helps us avoid most of the licensing requirement because the partners we use are licensed, and also because we only provide Bitcoin and we do it non-custodially, we immediately deliver the money. That also exempts us from most regulations. So we're not like a traditional exchange; we're more like an on and off ramp. And in Mexico, the law says that that's different. And also, we're
so
based in Panama. Our company's based in Panama, which is also another way for us to like avoid Mexican regulations directly. But we still have to KYC. We still have to do
yeah, yeah,
the suspicious activity reporting. All of the classical things. At this point, these are unavoidable.
yeah. I always get I have like friends in the Bitcoin space who's like, oh no, fuck KYC. I get it, but I don't. I'm not mad at companies which have to do KYC because they also do. It's they have to do it. Otherwise, they will. The government shuts down their company or the whole thing. It's like a
Right.
for me. It's always it's a 50-50 thing. I don't like it, but at the same time, I have to do it because otherwise, you know.
I mean, yeah, I don't like it either, honestly. And we're not like we're gonna try to do as much as we can to push back against bad laws and like government overreach.
Mhm.
But yeah, we you got to make a living, at the end of the day, and you got to consider that people have different needs as well. Some guys are fine with robo sats, like P2P Telegram bots, but they're not very user friendly. They don't have a lot of liquidity. You have to wait. So for like, if you want to orange pill Mexico or any other country, you have to do it through like easier better user experience ways, So, and that's what you have, if you, that's what we're doing, and that's why we have to KYC.
Yeah, and also what you just said, we also have to make a living. Well, we also still live in a fiat standard in a sense, and I'm not mad for
Yes.
someone who has a, if like I'm not sure if you pay your employees in Bitcoin or fiat, but I wouldn't be mad if you would tell me right now, I pay my employees in fiat, or some of them in Bitcoin and some of them fiat, because some of them maybe need fiat to pay bills, to buy food.
Right.
It's always it's a tough one, when you have to think of it, because in the
Yeah.
same time you have to navigate through this whole bullshit, and at the same time you also get the bullshit from a space which tells you just, oh no, Bitcoin only, or this only, or these and that, so. But let's go back to the making a living. Are you sponsored then, or do you mainly just have no sponsors and you do that all by yourself with Swapido?
Well, right now it's completely self-funded, I mean, it didn't, I also have some people helping me out on dev and design, so but it's all self-funded. We will fundraise at some point, probably earlier next year, but we're not there yet, and we're not in a hurry because we want to make a lot of companies, they fundraise before making money, we want to make money first,
Mm.
as we already have a product that's making money, so we want to focus on, being a real company that makes money, and then if we're successful at that, then the fundraising will come by itself.
Okay, cool. So that's really cool.
Thanks.
Now for me now, I have you could argue a question, but children, or generally teenagers my age, um, also currently with the situation, the U.S. election and Trump winning the U.S. election. I mean, he won like by a landslide. Uh, how is that affecting South America, especially children and teenager? And especially Mexico and some parts of South America like El Salvador, Venezuela, Colombia. Those are always countries which have been known for drug cartels, all those, you could argue, crime scenes. Or I mean, even the best thing is that they always claim Bitcoin is for criminals. While actually fiat is also for criminals, because
Right.
Pablo Escobar used dollars to buy stuff.
Of course.
That's also that's also a criminal in a sense. But how's that currently looking? The situation with El Salvador, Colombia, South America in general, and Bitcoin adoption, and especially for children and the education space.
Right, right. Well, I think, a lot of people here are looking for something to be optimistic about. People are quite happy in these countries. Contrary to what many people believe, like, yeah, there's a lot of problems, but there's a lot of happiness. There's a lot of
Mhm.
strong family values, strong religious values, just festivities, a lot of enthusiasm and like a culture of enjoying life, enjoying food, enjoying drinks. Uh, Maybe a bit too much on enjoying drinks, enjoying food. But my point is that people are happy in their lives, but professionally, there wasn't at least a lot of opportunities. So Bitcoin gives them a hope in terms of a financial and a professional future. It's like in Salvador now they're doing schools where people can learn about Bitcoin and get jobs and be competitive because they can like take lower wages than in the United States. So and that in Argentina that has happened too. In Venezuela that has happened too. So I think to people, Bitcoin is optimism, is hope, like Michael Saylor says. But Bitcoin is hope, and it is clearly the case here. It's also the case that people have lived through inflation more here. People have all of these fiat issues that we have. They're more present here. Inflation, uh, access to banking, liquidity issues in the market, things like that. So it's good. Bitcoin is good as well for some communities, not everywhere, but for some communities that are deep unbanked, that are, let's say, away from the financial system. And so Bitcoin is because Bitcoin is available to anyone, right? And how does I think you mentioned Trump there as well. I don't.
Yeah.
if I understood correctly. So, how does like Trump's election play out in all this? Well, um, I think to a certain degree, Trump's going to be good because he's going to face the issues face front. You know, instead of like the Democrats have kind of ignored. You know, it doesn't matter that countries are collapsing and there's millions of immigrants. You know, I think if Trump wants to resolve the immigrant issue, he has to go through a root cause, which is that Venezuela and Haiti have collapsed as countries. You know, and they have to have stability. You know, you cannot. Doesn't make sense to let your neighbor house on fire. You know, if you're because he's your neighbor at the end of the day, so it affects you. So I think Trump's gonna deal with that. The drug cartel issues, I mean, maybe, but at the end of the day, drugs are consumed in the U.S., right? The reason why we have
Yeah.
drug cartels in Mexico is because they're consumed in the U.S. So how maybe with RFK at the head of the health agencies, maybe that could pivot, you know, health priorities in the U.S. But I mean, that's just so hard, so big for 4 years. I don't think there's much change there, but I think on the immigration front, at least, and also I think for Mexico, I think everything. I'm very optimistic about Mexico because Mexico's just doing very well across in many ways. You know, like just last year, Mexico had historical high in money by tourism. It's now the first country in the world by earning money by tourism, more than France and Spain. You know, so there it has the highest the currency performed really well. Highest number of expats moving, Americans moving to another countries in Mexico. Highest foreign investments of ever was last year. You know, so it's doing pretty well across like some metrics. I think Trump will talk a lot, but in the end, they will negotiate and have good deals between themselves. Like last time Trump was president, it worked out well too. So yeah, I'm not too worried about that.
Yeah. That's very cool. So Gustavo, uh, one more question. Do you guys have social media? So where can people find you? Do you have Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever?
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah, well, people can find us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and even TikTok. We on Twitter, which is like the main one we use, it's Swapido BTC. You know, people can go to our website, swapido.com. You know, I think it would be interesting for people to, if they're in Mexico and they want to try to use Lightning to pay with anything in Mexico, they can use Swapido. They can sign up with their ID from another country because we take
mhm,
customers globally, not just from Mexico. Except we don't take American residents, but every other country we do. So yeah, so I think people could really enjoy it. Swapido.com and on Twitter, Swapido BTC.
cool. So yeah, uh, Gustavo, thank you for joining me today. Is there anything else you would like to say before we end this podcast?
I would just want to thank you, Janice, for inviting me. This was a great podcast. So I hope people enjoy it. If anybody has questions, they can reach out to me on Twitter. If you, I'm sure you're gonna put the link somewhere. But they can find
Yeah,
me, Gustavo, on Twitter. If they find Swapido, they'll find me too. So yeah, just to say that.
I mean, we had a good podcast despite our um problems that we faced, the tiny problems, but yeah.
Technical issue.
Um, Gustavo, have a great time. And people, this was another episode of Nomad Podcast. I mean, it was fun having you on, Gustavo. Especially, can I ask you something? How old are you? Because you mentioned like at
Um,
the end of
yeah, I'm 27.
okay, 27. Because you mentioned at the start of the podcast that you got into Bitcoin with 18. So I was
Yeah.
hoping maybe you're like 3 years older than me, but 27 is like a lot. It's like
Well, yeah,
8 years.
I'm a bit older.
Okay, 8 years. Yeah,
I'm
well, I
still
have a
still
bro.
pretty young, man.
I
For
mean,
the
I
industry, I'm young. You're super
yeah
young.
for I mean, I'm super young, so I have
Yeah.
a brother which is like 28. So I know the feeling of having like older or elderly people around me. No, just kidding. But yeah, dear people, that was another episode of Normal Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Gustavo, have a great day and see you soon. Bye.
Thank you, Dennis. See you.
Nomad Podcast.